Hi and welcome to Easy Fishing. Well, it's April, but with our crazy UK weather you would never know it. The temperature's about 24 degrees, which is more what I'd expect in July and August. But never mind, it's a lovely evening. It's 5:30, so I've got a couple of hours. And today I'm going to be doing Waggler fishing on the canal. Now I have to be absolutely honest and admit that 9 times out of 10 a pole is better than a waggler on this sort of situation. But I acknowledge there are a lot of people who are totally anti-pole. So this is for their benefit. So today I'm using my Drennan 11-foot ultralight with a small waggler, fixed bottom end only, 2.5 pound line with 5 number 10s down the line, one of which is on the hook length, and the hook length is a Drennan ready tied 22 carbon match to 0.09 or 1 pound 10 ounces if you think in old money. So bait wise, I have some casters, some extremely dodgy looking old maggots and some getting old pinkies. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to start off with a single red maggot on the hook. Just nick it through the end so it wriggles enticingly. Now I've plumbed up and I don't need a catapult because I'm only fishing about a rod length and a half out. So cast out, sink your line, and I'm going to throw a few casters. With an easy throwing range, spread them out a bit. Now in an ideal world I'd have had some ground bait with me, but this was a last minute expedition. So there's a slight pull on the canal from right to left and the float is dragging very slightly. I've got it set about 1 inch over depth. Now this is the trouble with the waggler, is you can't, oh, I just had a bite and I missed it. Well, that's something. Let's see if the maggot looks totally untouched. So cast it out, just a gentle flick. Stick the rod top onto the surface and flick it to bury the line. Unfortunately, that wasn't in the right position. No, just a gentle lob, stick rod top under the canal and flick it. Rod down, half a dozen casters, it's just within throwing range with a slight headwind. So, now I'm having trouble here trying to get this bait this float to hold in one place. It's dragging quite a lot in this breeze. This is the problem with the waggler. You cannot get the presentation that you can with a pole. But all is not lost, because there is no reason why you can't fish it under your rod top. Now normally I would suggest if you're going to do that you would be better off with a pole rig. If I'd had time I probably would have used a short pole close in, but people want to see waggler fishing, so here we are with all the problems it entails. Dragged out of position, cast it out again, overcast, bury the line, Now I'm pretty confident I will catch, but I'm equally confident I would have caught a lot more on the pole. But people, so like I said, some people don't like using a pole, don't own one. And this is the delicate side of Waggler fishing. This is about as light as you would go, though this rod will handle down to hook lengths of about 10 ounces or less. Drennan say it'll handle hook lengths down to a diameter of 0.006, which I personally wouldn't use. 0.75 is about as low as I would go. Oh, and my first swallow of the year. Oh, that's lovely. The swallow, you can't see it, but there's the old lockkeeper's cottage just to my left. And the swallows nest on there every year, and I stopped to look at the nest to see if there were any swallows in evidence, and there wasn't. But that is my first one. So I'm very pleased to see that. I always say the swallows are a good sign of summer's arriving. I know they say one swallow doesn't make a summer, but I still love to see them. And it's magic to think that that bird has flown all the way from Africa to Bedfordshire. Amazing. But it's a very pleasant way of fishing. It's quite an active way. You have to be fairly continuously putting bait in, casting out, reeling in, etc, etc. So don't just cast your float out and leave it there. And incidentally, the boat channel is quite narrow here. It finishes in less than half distance of the canal, but that's because the boats come down to a bend and swing across. I think, well, at least they're holding still now. Now I've got the float shotted down, so there's and my first fish, and oh, super specimen. Hey, gudgeon. A little tip here for these narrow canals. Do not be frightened of using your line clip to prevent you casting into the reeds. So if you cast out like that and put the line in the line clip, once I've sorted myself out a bit, you now know you're never going to cast into the far bank snags. And I had a bite while I was doing that. Well, I'm truly squashed the maggot. What do I expect to catch? Gudgeon, small roach, perch. I know there's skimmers in the area, but I can't get the presentation for them. And there's always possibility of a carp. Now a running line, I do stand a chance of getting it out. And I've started seeing a lot of bubbles over there, so I've got a feeling bream might be around. And also I'm having difficulty, oh, what have I got? I have a small roach. Very welcome. As I was saying, because I'm facing into the sun and I've got a mixed reflections, I've got a black top on my float, but I'm going to change it. Now, as I said, with these Drennan floats, you can mix and match, and I'm just going to pull the black top out and substitute it for a same size yellow one. So I don't have to change the shotting or anything like that. and I'll see if I can see that better. I also have the option of red, should I want. So, let's get it out there again. It's a little flick, hits the line clip short of the far bank, sink the line. Oh yes, I can see the yellow one better. And 20 maggots, 20 casters. It's just about right on the limit of throwing. I might have to pull out a small catapult. Didn't really want to, but the float is now just holding, but I've got more float top than I would like sticking out because I've got a small shot anchored on the bottom, a number 10. So not ideal, but you have to try and stop the float moving, because it's no use if a fish sees a maggot swimming along the bottom fast, because the rest of the maggots aren't doing that and they'll certainly ignore it. Overcast, sink the line, a few maggots, can't quite reach, I'm going to have to get the catapult out, I think. Just about reach them. Right, let's see if I've got a small catapult with me. Well, it's a bit powerful, but at least I know I can reach. Oh, another small fish. And what have we got this time? Oh, that's interesting. A minute skimmer. Oh yes, slimy little gits. Well, yep, there's that maggot. There's obviously some fish here willing to feed. So, what better way to while away a couple of hours? As I've tried to emphasise, it's not all about the size of the fish, it's not all necessarily about the numbers of fish, but the pleasure. Oh yes, I can reach it nicely with a few casters. Now a little tip here, load your catapult, place it on the tray next to you. Canal suddenly speeded up, my float is being dragged. Just holding in the surface film. There's about 3 millimeters sticking out, but I guess that's going to get dragged under in a second. Like I say, this is the disadvantage with a Waggler. Yes, I could stick a thicker top float on, stick a shot on the bottom, but then you lose the finesse. I'm feeding casters because I find they do tend to draw a better stamp of fish, and I'm sure if I feed lots of maggot I'll probably get, you know, only small fish. Now, I mean, you know, you have to be realistic. I could pick up a big perch. On this light tackle I could hook the carp, which might be quite a bit of fun on camera. But there's no real obvious snags other than the boat and a few reeds on the far bank, so I might get lucky and get it out. Now, while the boat's in the lock, I'm just dropped right under my rod top almost, and just fed a few maggots down there and pass the time, wait till the canal's finished going backwards and forwards, Would you believe I've had a bite already? So literally just drop it off the rod top, feed a few bits of bait, and sometimes you can get a good surprise this close in, same as if you're fishing the short pole. Presentation isn't as good, but it can be alright. At least it won't be drifting around on the canal, it will be sitting pretty stationary. And it's right on the slope of the boat channel off my rod tip. But while you're doing this, don't neglect to feed a bit of bait across to the original swim. That lot went a little further than I intended, but I can always cast a little bit further across. And what did I say? Close in. What have we got? Nice roach. So I'm going to repeat the process. Half a dozen maggots. Who knows, I'll get another one. Now the old time boys would fish a centre pin, and if you have a spare rod, it can be a good idea to set up. Oh, and that one dropped off. Gudgeon. No winding in, no casting involved. The presentation's a little clumsy, but it will do. And who knows, could get a better fish. Hopefully I'll need the landing net. Incidentally, even with a soft rod like this, I've got the clutch set fairly light, just in case. Because you never know on here what size fish you might pick up. Oh, lots of little dips and oh, bump that one. Probably only a gudgeon or something, but he's mullered the maggot, that's for certain. Now, I do have some ultra sensitive floats for this canal work, but for beginner's purpose I'm just using a little puddle chucker with an insert in it. It's short, so it won't spook the fish too much. It's shallow water, because nowhere is it more than 4 feet deep, or 4.5 at the most. Just feed a few casters across. Oh, bloke absolutely disappeared while I had the catch bolt in my hand, as is always the way. But he's still nibbling on it. So just because you've got a rod doesn't mean you've got to cast out a long way. Now, the old boys used a centre pin on a short light rod, and they used a very sensitive crow quill floats and things like that, the old natural materials. And there's no reason why you can't duplicate it if you have a spare rod for times like this, and use a pole rig. Just tie it to the end of your line and away you go. and it can result in a lot of good fish. I haven't got time to do that, and I only have the one float rod with me today, so I'm not going to bother. But ordinarily, oh, here we go. Obviously, if, oh, he dropped off. Have a nice little roach. So there's, you know, plenty of fish to be had. And all the while I'm not casting over that further out swim, I'm giving the fish a chance to settle. So at the moment I'm just going to carry on like this for a little bit. Pinch of maggots, a few casters over, reload the catapult for next time. Quite an enjoyable way of fishing, but because I've got this float rigged up for the far shelf, or the far slope should I say, here there's a bit much float sticking out the water, which is not so sensitive. Ideally you only want 5mm or I don't know, 10mm at the most, ideally. And obviously a fairly thin sensitive bristle is essential. There we go again. Just a few maggots, half a dozen, no more. Same as you were fishing any other style, little and often. Don't go throwing big handfuls in. Oh, something slightly better. What have I got? Is this a landing net? Oh, do I risk lifting it? Oh no, I better not. That looks like a skimmer. There we go. Oh yes. Now I'm not sure if this is a skimmer or a hybrid. Oh no, it's I'm not sure. There we go. Not huge, but nice to catch. And if you've got children who you hopefully are introducing to this style of fishing, they would be very pleased to catch that. Like I said, it's not all about the monsters. When you're using these small fine wire hooks, be careful unhooking the fish, because they are quite easy to bend out. So let's just keep dropping it in there. I'll put a few more casters in. A few over the further swim. I'm only firing about 10 casters at a time over the far bank, and I'm fishing probably putting about the same half a dozen to 10 in here close. So this is turning out to be quite an enjoyable session. I thought I was going to struggle fishing across, but it wasn't easy, but there's plenty of fish around. May Day holidays, if you're a parent, encourage your kids to come down to the canal, or somewhere else for that matter. You can't fish the rivers until June, but canals like this are fantastic places for kids to fish. Here we go again. And oh, another nice roach. Let's go out again. Pinch your casters. Catching quite a lot of fish here. I've probably got about pounds of fish already. And I've only been fishing just over half an hour. And like I say, it's a very short session. But here we go again. Another, what have we got? Getting skimmers now. Oh, this one might be a hybrid. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you're catching fish and enjoying yourself. So like I say, if you're an angling parent, or even a non-angling parent, have a look at some of my videos. Most of them are aimed at beginners. Come and give it a go. Don't even have to use maggots if you're a mum. You can use bread very successfully. I did a short video last year on how to use bread as bait. Cool. These fish are on it. Another bream, skimmer. Some of these fish are, I don't know, 3 or 4 ounces, some of them. Makes me wish I bought a keep net with me, but the only reason I prefer the 11 footers is because you cast a lot more. And there are some swims where wielding a 13 footer can be a bit problematical. Not in this swim, I've got no overhanging trees. But in a lot of swims, a few casters across, a few in the catapult ready, and half a dozen in close. Yes, so it's just generally because they're lighter and better to use. It was one of the options I explained. You can either have one like this. If you were specialising in canal fish, get a rod like this. They're hard to find these days because not many people fish the Waggler on canals anymore, but, well, it's that one. They are, if you intend to fish the canals a lot, this one's paid for itself over and over again. And it's not just on canals, it's beautiful little light rod for any light float fishing situation. You know, as long as you're not casting a 5 swan shot Waggler 40 or 50 yards, general Waggler fishing, it will cope. They're only small, admittedly, but they're still a fish and they're still a pleasure to catch. I don't think you should ever lose sight of the fact that fishing is about pleasure. And yes, you probably could fish a bigger bait like sweet corn or worms quite successfully, but you would be limiting yourself as to your target species. Now, because I haven't had a cast across for a while, I'm just going to flick it out there again. Few casters in close. Oh, missed that bite completely. Took the maggot off the hook as well. Now for this sort of fishing, I would not use anything really bigger. Normally I would use a 20 or a 22. Occasionally going to 16 if I wanted to fish a double maggot or a piece of worm. But for general purposes, a 20 or a 22 is fine. And I now have a wagtail. And like I say, I'm a bit of a sucker for the birds, but they are part of fishing. And believe you me, I'd much rather listen to the horse in the field neighing than hearing some boom chucker music going down the street. Oh. Here I'm a good 3/4 of a mile from the nearest road, so there's very rarely any traffic noise. There's a railway about a mile away, but well, what do we get here? And I can hear a turn. Oh yes, pair of them. Wonderful fish catching birds, and so elegant. This one's a little hybrid. We call them hybrids, they're normally roach bream hybrids. They can grow to a fair size. I have caught them to 3 pounds, and they can deceive you in the fact you think you've caught a record roach. But if you look closely, there are a few giveaway signs. But it doesn't really matter what species they are, does it? All that matters is that you're enjoying yourself. Now I expect people who are abroad in the States and whatever that watch my fishing program will probably think, why am I doing this sort of fishing? Well, basically it's UK fishing. Oh, bump that one. And it is different. Fishing throughout the world is different. I mean, I doubt if anybody in the States even sells a size 20 or 22 hook, but I could be wrong. It's the name of the game here is finesse. Now I've cast about 3 feet beyond where I was fishing, so I'm laying a bit of line on the bottom because it's, oh, and I've got a bite straight away, and a fish, and it's not gudging. What have I got? Oh yes, that'll do nicely, sir. Not a monster. A nice skimmer. Yes. Only 4 or 5 ounces, I guess. Especially hunters are looking along that going, pike live bait. But like I say, I don't care. I'm catching, so good enough for me. So I can cast quite confidently, knowing I'm not going to cast into the far bank snags, which is pretty disastrous and disheartening. Hello, we got some disturbance in the far bank reeds. What's going on there? Mr. Pike possibly? Or a perch? Oh, it's a bigger fish. I wonder if that's a carp. Oh, that could be fun. That could be fun. I wouldn't mind though. That cast didn't land too well. Oh no, it didn't tangle. It's important to feather the line so it lands nice and gently. And who knows? Feeding these casters out here could well bring a carp. I'll be quite happy if it does. To give the outside line a little bit of a rest, because I'm pretty sure that was a carp there. I'm just going to drop in on the inside again. And I'll keep feeding across there and go back there from time to time, but the better quality fishing canals are quite easily spooked because the water's so shallow. So I give it a rest by fishing this other line here. Well, I've got to tell you, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Lovely soft rod, absorbs all the lunges. Well, we got another skimmer or roach. Oh, do I risk lifting it? Ooh. Shouldn't really do that with skimmers, they've got such soft lips. The hook can pull out very easily. Oh, like that. Fortunately, no harm done. Now, just as a matter of interest, I'm going to stick a caster on the hook. Now casters, you really ideally want to bury the hook inside it, so you can't see it. You can only do that with a small hook, 18, 20, 22. But let's give that a little lob across there and see if a better quality fish will accept my caster. The thing with casters as a bait is you normally have to wait a bit longer, but they do have a habit of picking out better quality fish. It's a bit like dead maggots as opposed to live. Sometimes dead maggots can outfish live maggots 10 to 1. Because I've been feeding casters out there, oh, fish are obviously feeding on them. Now that's only a small fish. At least it feels like it. It's not a gudgeon, but it's not exactly ripping line off the slipping clutch. Oh, but I'm quite happy with. Oh, that's a quality roach. That's what I mean about caster. That roach is twice the size of the others I've caught, and he's also, if you can see on video, he's blown the caster up the line, and that's something roach do a lot. Pop him back. So that's very satisfying. This time I'll put a caster and try it on the inside line. And you cast, well, 2 or 3 casters. Half a dozen casters over the far bank. Reload the catapult ready. And I have to tell you all, I'm having a wonderful time here. Oh, what have we got here? Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, that's not a 2-ounce roach. That's shot under with a caster on the hook. Is this a better quality roach? Well, I don't believe it. I have a chub. Now, there aren't many chub in this canal. But well, there you go. There we go. Small chub. I don't know, 5 or 6 ounces I suppose, maybe a bit more. What a lovely fish. Oh, I'm pleased to catch that. Now I have to tell you, I really did not expect to catch a chub. But that is a wonder of fishing canals. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and I hope you've enjoyed a beautiful evening as much as I have. So until next time, tight lines.